While the Trump administration is taking aim at major Canadian export, the U.S. Commerce Department is hiking anti-dumping duties on Canadian softwood lumber to 20.56%.
Canada has always been of the thought that we need to meet force with force.
The president has got what he wanted, which was a headline tariff number. These deals will never.
Not going to accept any deal because of an arbitrary timeline that the Americans set. We're going to do the work that's necessary to get the best deal for the country.
Canadians are making a statement, and it's reverberating beyond their borders. What began as a temporary expression of frustration has transformed into a powerful and ongoing movement. Across the country, Canadians are boycotting U.S. products and travel in response to aggressive trade policies, inflammatory rhetoric, and what many view as a deliberate attack on Canadian sovereignty by President Donald Trump. While political tensions often unfold on news programs and debate stages, this movement is manifesting in local stores, on social media, at the checkout counters of everyday life. At the core of this consumer-driven backlash is a deep sense of national pride and defiance. The catalyst was clear: a sharp escalation in U.S.-Canada trade tensions, culminating in President Trump imposing tariffs on Canadian goods and even threatening a 35% tariff on all imports from Canada. Even more provocative were his repeated offhand remarks suggesting that Canada might become the 51st state, a statement that struck a nerve across the Canadian political spectrum. The backlash was immediate. Carney didn't stay silent, emerging as one of the most outspoken critics of Trump, challenging not just the economic recklessness of the trade war, but also the tone of the rhetoric. His bold stand began as a direct critique of Trump's tariff escalation. While many political and business leaders chose their words carefully, balancing diplomacy with pragmatism, Trade Minister Dominic LeBlanc took a more direct approach. Canada is ready to negotiate, but we will not capitulate, he declared, after leaving Washington without a deal. However, what's happening outside the diplomatic sphere is perhaps even more telling. Across Canada, citizens are making decisions that reflect a growing determination to preserve their economic and cultural independence. One store in Ottawa, Maker House, stands as a symbol of this shift. The shop, which exclusively sells Canadian-made products, has seen a dramatic surge in sales since the trade conflict began. According to founder Garrett Davies, business has boomed, up 80% overall and nearly doubling the week before Canada Day. This isn't just about economic retaliation. It's about identity. It's like a big hug from your neighbors across the country saying, "We're in this together," Davies said. "We're going to protect our country and our economy." His words echo a broader sentiment that has taken root among Canadians, one of solidarity and resistance against what's seen as bullying from the South. Historically, boycotts driven by political outrage often fade as attention wanes, with people return to old habits. But that's not the case here. Canadian consumers are standing firm. Surveys show strong support for the Buy Canadian movement, and an increasing number of stores are removing U.S. products from their shelves to meet consumer demand. The boycott is no longer just a protest. It's becoming the norm. Another clear indicator of this shift is the steep drop in Canadian travel to the United States. Since Trump took office, cross-border travel has decreased significantly. In June alone, air travel from Canada to the U.S. fell by 22.1%, while land travel dropped by 33.1%. This marks the sixth consecutive month of year-over-year declines. While the declines in June were somewhat less dramatic than in May, the sustained nature of the trend is noteworthy. This isn't a temporary blip. It's a realignment of behavior. One reason this boycott has staying power is that it's not difficult for many Canadians to maintain. Domestic alternatives to American goods are readily available, especially in sectors like food, clothing, and household products. Canada's own manufacturing base, though smaller than its other neighbors, is strong enough to supply many everyday necessities. When it comes to travel, Canadians have plenty of options. From coast to coast, the country is home to breathtaking natural landscapes and vibrant cities. Internationally, Europe and Asia remain attractive options for those looking to explore beyond North America. Even items like chocolate bars wrapped in patriotic expressions are more than novelty. They become badges of identity. They represent not only resistance, but also pride. According to Carney, The imposition of aggressive tariffs, especially proposed 35% across-the-board tariff on Canadian goods, wasn't just economically damaging. It was a deliberate provocation. This is a negotiation, Carney said. It's punishment, and it's a direct attack on the principle that nations, especially allies, should deal with mutual respect. Such reputational damage doesn't just harm diplomacy. It affects exports, tourism, and international partnerships. When countries lose trust in a global leader, they look elsewhere. That's exactly what's happening in Canada, where both consumers and businesses are recalibrating their relationships with American brands and suppliers. Even multinational corporations with operations in both countries are feeling the pressure as Canadian consumers increasingly turn to homegrown alternatives. But perhaps the most remarkable aspect of this movement is its grassroots nature. It wasn't orchestrated by government policy or large advocacy groups. It began with everyday people making small choices, opting for a Canadian-made jam instead of an imported one, canceling a weekend trip to Buffalo, or switching from a U.S.-based streaming service to a local alternative. Those decisions matter. They accumulate and send powerful signals to business leaders, policymakers, and foreign governments. Garrett Davies sees it clearly. In February, when Trump's tariff threats intensified, his store's year-over-year sales surged by 150%. That's no coincidence. It's a reflection of a deeper, growing conviction that economic power can and should be in the hands of the people. Canadians aren't just consumers anymore. They're active participants in a larger conversation about sovereignty, fairness, and national pride. This movement also signals a shift in how people think about patriotism. It's no longer confined to flying flags on holidays or cheering for the national hockey team. It's about values, supporting local businesses, standing up against perceived injustices, and asserting a nation's right to determine its own path without coercion from its neighbor. On a broader scale, this situation reflects a growing global trend, the rejection of globalization's darker aspects. In Canada, this means rethinking the decades-long assumption that deeper economic ties with the U.S. were always beneficial. As Trump's policies grow more combative, that assumption is being challenged more forcefully than ever before. The big question now is whether this boycott will remain a temporary reaction or transform into a long-term shift in Canadian consumer culture. If current trends are any indication, the latter seems increasingly likely. The sustained decline in travel, the rising popularity of Canadian-made goods, and the growing sense of unity and defiance all point to a fundamental change in how Canadians view their role in the North American economic landscape. What's clear is that Canadians are no longer passive observers in the ongoing trade and political saga. They're active participants, using their wallets and travel choices to shape the future of their country. They are rejecting the idea that they must simply accept whatever policies come from Washington, and they are doing so not with anger, but with purpose and pride. This moment is a turning point. It serves as a reminder that trade is about more than just numbers on a balance sheet. It's about values, relationships, and respect. And when those are undermined, people will respond, not just with words, but with action.